What's next for UC after desk phones and apps? We're really looking at strategic opportunities for UC and SIP trunking providers here in general. I'm Mark Lindsay, a senior member of technical staff and a vice president of engineering here at ECG. We have been building UC service providers since about 2002. We've seen a lot of evolution away from TDM to different voice platforms, VoIP platforms, and we've helped a lot of the world's voice providers bring VoIP products to market and unified communications and SIP trunking products to market. So we're always on the lookout for how to help service providers grow and expand their product offering. So this is really exciting technology for us. It's a great option for UC providers to look into. And I'm really excited to have my friends from Tango Networks with us today, Robert Babis and Mike Bishop. Welcome. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Robert Babis, Tango Networks. I'm Director of U.S. Channel Sales, actually located down here in Tampa, Florida. Been in the communications industry for many, many years, from companies like Verizon, B of A, IBM, and Five9. So this is, like Mark said, very exciting. And happy to be part of this organization, building the channel, and especially with a strong partner like ECG. Mike?
Greetings all, my name is Mike Bishop. I've been with Tango Network since we started back in 2005, worn many hats, culminating into becoming the Director of Sales Engineering. Looking forward to this chat today about our Extend service, and certainly looking forward to the future and how I can help you guys with any questions regarding our service. Mark?
Great. Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much, gentlemen. Well, I want to give a little background of kind of how I think we've gotten here. And a question that's always on any product developer, product engineer's mind is, what's a modern communication service provider today? So what does it really mean to be a really full-fledged unified communication, SIP trunking provider in any given time? And I think we've gone through some phases of things. We started off with really what I call essential voice. So this is what you might call a classic Broadworks, Metaswitch service provider that provides, UCaaS services, SIP, SIP PBX services, SIP trunking services are part of this. There's some really essential things here that are necessary, and this became kind of the baseline table stakes to be considered a voice provider. You had to offer VoIP-based services with SIP, and so this is really fundamental, essential. You can't get away from this. Folks really do need to be able to make phone calls with telephone numbers and be able to receive them, service customers over those networks. And then features have begun to add. And so we see this as a growing level of kind of signal strength where service providers, as they add new capabilities, they're able to offer more product, more services to their customers. And these things both bring in more revenue possibilities, but they really do extend the capability of the customers to do more things with their communication service. So we call it bars, and the second bar, 2 bars of services, you might call it a connected business. And so it's really service providers who've been adding features and capabilities beyond that basic, what you get out of the box with a classic Metaswitch or Broadworks type system. So this might include things like modern messaging, the ability to send SMS. Maybe you have some customizable IVR. There was a number of companies in the industry that give you more advanced IVR services. But also eSIM integration, the ability to connect your UC service to a mobile cellular device. And that's really what we're going to focus on more later today. But that's one of those fundamental capabilities. You also, at this level, you get analytics, you get a dashboard that lets the customer see what their calls are. And these are really kind of starting to become more fundamental and more expected. Beyond that, like the next level up is connected business. These are service providers investing in major features. So they're offering additional connectivity to allow enterprises and businesses to do innovative new things. So for example, we see webhooks at this level. We see API integration so that you can connect from your CRM with custom software into your calling communication platform. You get TLS and SRTP, which is becoming more increasingly a standard requirement that you need the ability to do encrypted audio and encrypted signaling because we're able to rely on the internet when we have good internet connections. Maybe you start to have voice biometric authentication for a contact center type product. You've got these add-in features that really make the system more capable. At this point, we've got emergency services location updates, so the ability to detect when a change has occurred and trigger that the location for that user has moved. And the next level up, we call it secured collaboration. And so in 2025, these are service providers aiming to support major enterprises and be fully competitive with the top players. So here we've got the ability to sign HIPAA business associates agreement. So you got a voice service provider that's done everything necessary to be able to really sign off on those agreements and do the security that's required. You've got no code integration. So at 3 bars, we really had the ability to use API integration, which means you've got a relatively high skill level and development team at your customer site with no code integration through things like Zapier. You've got the ability to add new functionality to integrate with your UC provider so that you can get a signal back from them and say, hey, every time a call comes into one of these 3 people, add it to a spreadsheet or do this other function or update the CRM, a new CRM maybe that we're building of our own choosing. So the ability to give managers and non-programmers the ability to do interesting things without having to use source code or compilers. At this point, maybe we have secure pay capability so that we've got the ability to actually maybe pay by voice or pay by moving outside the normal workflow so that you can have your regular employees take credit card payments, for example, without having to train everybody on all the PCI DSS standards. And so you've got your communication providers able to add those things. And you also see a real-time transcription show up at this point. So for not only for contact center calls, but for regular ordinary unified communication calls, often integrated with a call recording platform, you've got the ability to actually transcribe the call in real time and actually start to get something useful out of that. Now, these are service providers that are really looking to service the top enterprises. But at 5 bars, there's another level. So 5 bars are these future-oriented service providers that are bringing strong AI-based services to market and not just enabling communication. They're not just connecting to the existing system, but they're really pushing into how to make their customers genuinely more productive. So they're bringing more productivity features to those customers. And so we see things like keyword detection. So as you're on a call, things that can identify what those content of those calls were about. Action item extraction. So we took the transcription of the call, but we actually pulled out and said, these are your to-do items from that call and send that out. So we're seeing these are in the marketplace. And these are things that every UC provider should be thinking about doing. And really, it's not about taking your customer's data and doing interesting things that benefit the service provider. It's taking the customer's data and providing it to the customer in a format that really benefits them. So you want those enterprise users to really get full value of their internal communications, their customer communications. And the big challenge is doing it in a security first way so that you can actually provide these services to them in a way that can withstand scrutiny, robust scrutiny, of what happens if somebody hacks in and accesses the service provider. Well, you should be able to have good answers to those questions. We can provide you transcripts, for example, without compromising your enterprise security. So all that said, we see this build out, but we've got a large part of the industry that's kind of satisfied in a sense with desk phones and UC apps, mobile apps running on smartphones. They're a little bit satisfied there, but we all know there's something a little bit wrong here. If you look at the way modern workers work, there may be a desk phone on the desk, but there's an iPhone next to the keyboard. You can tell which device is actually in active use. So should the UC industry actually be satisfied with a business built on desk phones and UC apps? Wall Street Journal has actually kind of brought this up a few times, and it's interesting. So a couple of years ago, they ran this article kind of making fun of the business desk phone. I think this was 2022. They said it's giant and has like 5 million buttons. Why the office desk phone just won't die. So we're sort of analyzing this like, well, everyone's got a smartphone, but we still have these desk phones, and they were kind of examining, well, why are these there? And of course, this was like a New York City perspective, financial industry. There were a lot of thoughts there, like, well, if everyone starts doing business on their smartphone, we can't record those calls. But under the law, we're required to record those calls. We have compliance obligations that we have to deal with, among other things. And so there's always been this tension where The smartphones that the knowledge workers, the employees wanted to use, are not quite right for what the business actually needs. And so we continue to have this desk phone requirement for a lot of folks. Here's actually a more recent article. This just came out in July this year. It's basically a follow up on the previous one. Why the business world can't let go of landline phones. Smartphones have come to dominate our consumer life, but in many businesses across the country, there's still a strong case to be made for that hard plastic handset. And they have a couple of really illuminating quotes. One was the leader of the collaboration business at Cisco, who says that they're selling fewer landline phones, and what they mean by that is actual desk phones, really, to knowledge workers than it once was, and they're expecting kind of that trend to continue. And then the CTO of New York Life mentioned how if one were to walk into the offices of New York Life Insurance Company today, they would find a physical phone on every desk. But that may not be the case a year from now. So they're really saying, like, really, we expect to see changes in 2026. And this is based on our conversations with large enterprise. This is kind of what they're expecting, that when possible, they don't want to have to be reliant on those desk phones. So this still raises a question like, well, how do we get all the compliance features? How do we get the integration with our internal business calling? What if we've got our own PBX platform that we run, within New York Life, for example? I'm going to guess that they actually run their own PBX, so they do a lot of their internal call routing and they use SIP trunking services. We see this as typically the model that's used in the medical industry. They want to have control over their internal PBX, but then again, they don't run a cellular network. So how do they solve this problem? And one way of thinking about it is to think, well, maybe the over-the-top app, maybe the cellular app is the answer. So why all the angst about desk phones and other fixed location phones? Desk phones just don't fit the way many knowledge workers work. There are times and places when you need an actual fixed location phone. So for example, I got to be part of the team that helped convert Madison Square Garden to their latest voice platform. And one of the interesting facets there was a lot of place in a large facility like that where you don't need to call a person, you need to call a location, and that location is staffed with people. So if you're calling to the hot dog stand next to the northeast entrance, then you want to call that location. You don't really care who answers. And so a mobile device may not be the right fit for that. And so getting a phone on the wall. You also have cases where you need emergency phones. We need to be able to pick up a phone and call for emergency help from anywhere inside the building. And we don't want to have to depend on getting somebody's smartphone out of their pocket to do that. So there are places and times when you certainly do need a location to have a phone. And so we're not saying that that's going to go away. That's really not the argument here. That's not what's on the line. One of the other options that's sometimes attempted here is just forwarding calls over. This was the classic option we saw in a lot of the UC rollout. Was we'll just talk about the feature that came out from Broadworks called Broadworks Anywhere or Broadworks Remote Office, where effectively you set up a kind of call forwarding. So every time my business number rings, there's a call forwarding that rings over to my cell phone, and so I can get the call on my cell phone. And that can be a pretty useful feature, but it's got some substantial downsides. For one thing, I've still got the call going to a separate phone number. There's a separate phone number involved. And the other major one is making outbound calls becomes tricky because when I make an outbound call, I'm generally going through my what I'd say my cell phone number, and that may not be the number identity that I want to use. It may not have all the call recording and other compliance features that I'm really required to have. So can we solve this with smartphone apps? Could we just put an app on the phone that actually solves these problems? So the nice thing about a smartphone app is that it's going to register with SIP or some other protocol across the network. So some of the big smartphone apps we could call Microsoft Teams as a smartphone app. It's one of the most popular for sure. The WebEx app is another smartphone app when you combine it with WebEx for Broadworks or something like that. There's a lot of other smartphone apps out there that can be used, like the Snap Mobile app for NetSapiens providers. There's a lot of apps out there that can be used that will register over the internet, so they use your internet data to actually get back to the UC provider. And actually, this is a topic that analyst Dave Michaels has talked a lot about in an article a couple years ago, The Convergence and Evolution of Enterprise Calling. He calls out this distinction between the over-the-top apps and other apps, and he particularly points to what the gap is on over-the-top apps. Applications such as UC and UCaaS run on over-the-top OTT applications over the top of the internet connection, resulting in reduced quality of experience when compared to native apps. When he says native apps, what he's really talking about there is the apps that use the quality of service engineered cellular bandwidth. That's why low quality UC conversations on a mobile device can sound better if you reconnect using the native dialer. And what he means by that is you're just calling with a cell phone connection. So you're actually using the cellular network to actually make a call, which is called a CS call, circuit switch call inside the cellular technology. Most OTT apps aren't as sensitive to network performance as voice and video. So when you're doing things like messaging with Slack or you're doing Teams, chat, it doesn't really matter as much. And if you're on a call and you're just watching somebody else talk, on a Teams meeting, you may not notice how much the data quality is going in and out because you're watching it with a couple of seconds of delay of buffering. But when you're actually the one presenting or you're communicating in it, then the quality of service, your packets leaving your device going across the internet through the cellular network to the endpoint, those become very sensitive. And so this becomes a really major point of recognizing the deficiencies in the cellular and Wi-Fi network. So you really can't completely solve this with smartphone apps. Most service providers do offer an over-the-top smartphone app for Android and iPhone, but the calling quality really depends on the quality of the Wi-Fi or the cellular network data to provide quality. And so if you're in an area, there's an area close to where I live where you cross a river and there's really no cellular service for a gap there, you're going to have several seconds with no internet data. But interestingly, if I'm on a circuit switch phone call, a phone call made with one of my providers, including Tango, we're going to talk about, like the actual audio for that call continues. And it's because the network was actually engineered to prioritize and provide a minimum capability for that voice communication to go on. In the US and much of Europe, data throughput varies widely as you move. So it's not just about tower switching only. Sometimes it's about other kind of network degradation issues, and it primarily affects the internet data path. And so the internet data path becomes a real liability. And if you've ever been in a situation where you had to rely on that internet data in a mobile basis in order to do an important presentation, to communicate very clearly about some important matter, then probably you've experienced this challenge. Or if you've been in a situation where you were going to a Wi-Fi and it was kind of spotty Wi-Fi, maybe it was public Wi-Fi, even if you're using a VPN, that quality of that Wi-Fi signal, the interference status, the noise level that's in the Wi-Fi network is going to make a big difference in the actual regularity of those packets. And so we're kind of back to what we used to talk about in 2005 with voice over IP. Like you got to have good underlying data paths in order to make this work well. So I'm gonna turn this over to Tango guys in just a second, but really from the UC engineer, product designer perspective, what are we talking about? We're talking about an option that lets you connect through Tango Extend so that you've got no app, you've got an eSIM that you put on your smartphone, and that connects through the Tango Extend network, and they run all of that cellular network operations. They're basically the people who have the towers. In effect, they run the cellular network. They run all that contract. So you and I who run voice UC networks don't really have to work on that part of the technology. So they manage all that part of it, and that connects back to your network. So if you've got a Broadwork system, you got a NetSapiens or Porta-One or other UC platforms, your system is you're gonna see them as another endpoint. They're gonna explore that some more. In addition, you're gonna continue to have your UC phones just like you offer today. Like I've got a Cisco phone shown on the screen here, and you're gonna continue to offer SIP trunking just as you do today. We're not talking about removing anything. We're just talking about a new endpoint to add to your existing product lineup. And I think one of the things I think is really fascinating here is that SIP trunking is a massive seller in the United States. A lot of service providers are offering SIP trunking. And it's because the SIP PBXs, such as let's just say, we'll brag on the Cisco Call Manager, it's extremely popular. It serves some really important functions. And you're not going to get business from a lot of customers by taking their service and moving it into your core platform and requiring them to use your UCaaS product, your hosted PBX product. They're going to want to continue to run their own PBX, and that's fine. So we in the UC industry will offer them SIP trunking as a service. Perfectly fine. So like in my example here, I've got an Avaya PBX. We're connected to them. We've got SIP trunking here. We're using an Adtran TA900 as basically our gateway to provide that SIP trunking service. And so we're connected to that. And we've got a user here within the Avaya PBX system, for example, 229.999.1234. This is a user. He's got a DID. This is a desk phone. He's always got that. And let's say that you are in the role of the SIP trunking service provider. You're providing that link. Well, what you can add is with the Tango service, you can add an existing line through the configuration on your application servers, you can add this existing line, and you can say, well, this DID routes down the SIP trunk, and in addition, it also is configured to be a registering SIP device. All of the major UC platforms support this capability today, where we call it device twinning or shared call appearance or other functions like that, where a particular user is accessible, a phone number is accessible over a SIP trunk, and it's also accessible over a SIP device. Well, now what you've done is you've added a mobile capability that augments the SIP trunking product so that your SIP trunking product just got a lot better. Now you've got SIP trunking product with the ability to add this mobile cellular service. And from a technology perspective, it's actually this a very simple configuration. It's probably something you're already selling today. You're just not necessarily using the Tango product to get there. So how does this work? I'm going to let them go into details on how the Tango product works. But from the UC service provider, Tango Extend uses the mobile device to register just like any SIP phone. So a lot of you probably already know that in the network, modern smartphones are already using SIP to connect back into the core of the cellular network, the IMS network. Well, that IMS network is what Tango runs. So your user for, let's say, a Broadworks platform or some other UC platform, you're going to set up shared call appearance or twinning or some other capability like that, where you provide that user the access to two different devices, maybe their existing desk phone that they use sometimes, and then their mobile device as well. And so that's going to look in your configuration like they have two users, one user with two separate devices on it. Completely normal type of configuration, very common. The cool thing here is the mobile device does not need to have a strong data connection. And this is often the holdup with OTT apps, like my Wi-Fi is bad or my cellular at this location is weak. Well, you don't need to have a strong data connection to make this work. So there are going to be places in my testing, there are places where I really can't make a database like an over-the-top call. I can't do a Zoom meeting. I can't use a Teams meeting. I can't use Google Meet in a reliable way from this location. But I can make a perfectly good call with Tango or Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile. Like all of the cellular providers for making phone calls work fine, and Tango becomes one of those that becomes your provider for doing that. And I think the thing I love the most is there's no app to install. Like you don't have this process of deploying an app. We don't have all the mobile device management hassles of managing an app and doing updates like that. So there's no app to install, and I don't need to worry about a VPN because frankly, this technology already provides an encrypted path behind the scenes. So that's what you're looking for here is you're looking for a way to add a cellular capability to your network so that you can provide this. And so in some sense, this is very simple. This is like saying, hey, you already sell Cisco and Yealink phones. Here's a new XYZ model phone. Like, why don't you try it out? So in a sense, it's kind of really simple like that. It's just that it's actually, we're integrating with the smartphones that your end users are already active on. They're already using. So I've said enough. I want to hand this over to Robert and to Mike and talk a little bit more about, give some more details on how this all works and how they're seeing this be effective.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Great tee up on Tango and Tango Extend, and what it is. You did a good job describing that it's based on eSIM. Let me ask, kind of out to the group, have you ever seen anyone with two mobile phones?
Yeah, for sure.
I saw it Monday. I was traveling to DC. My seatmate, she had two phones. We struck up a conversation and she said, yeah, this is my work. This is my personal, and I want to keep these lives separate. I understand that. My last company, I did the same thing for 2 weeks. And then it was untenable carrying two cell phones. And I said, okay, to heck with it. I'll just use my personal phone as my work cellular as well. So now I had my personal and business commingled. That's phone calls, that's messaging, all of that. Well, what Tango does is it allows those to be separate. It's funny, when I started with the company, I was talking with some friends asking, they were asking, okay, what are you doing? Who are you working for? What do you do? What's Tango? And telling them, I had a couple of friends, they said, oh, yeah, I got that. And we started looking and they were showing me their UC apps. And I said, not really. They said, oh, yes, yeah, I can, people can do this and I can call and da, da, da. I said, okay, well, when you want to call Susan at the office, how do you do that? Oh, I just pick up my phone and call her. I said, oh, but people call you through the app. No, they just call my cell phone. So they were not using those over the top apps anyway. And it was funny seeing them try to get to them, and it was obvious that they weren't using it. Uh, Great point, Mark. No mobile device management. That's another reason that some people say, no, I don't want to use my phone as my company phone because I don't want anything to do with MDM on my phone because it's being taken over. So let's go ahead and build this out a little more, Mark. Tango Extend, from an accessibility and usability, we all know how to use that native interface. Again, there's no app associated with it. What we're doing is we're extending that DID, landline, UC number, whatever you want to call it, and we're making that available on that same device. And you can see on the graphic there, and Mark showed one previously, you just pick which line you want to make the call on. Mark or Mike will show you later how it's configured for your contact. So it will always use your business line or always use your personal line. And you'll know when those calls are coming in, it's answered appropriately, you've got the correct branding and so forth. Important to note, we can do messaging, not just voice, which is easy, but you can do an SMS to and from that landline, that UC number. And we can capture all of that too for compliance related solutions, from a very easy one to something more complex. And again, Mike will talk about that more. So we're talking about a solution that's good for any number of industries. We call it workers on the move, someone who may not be that desk back office based worker, but like Mark said, everyone's got a mobile on their desk. Maybe they do use it instead of the hard phone or the desk phone. Uh, Financial services, healthcare. We're seeing a lot in healthcare where uh, campuses, medical campuses, or assisted living facilities, nursing homes, people that are on the move between floors, on floors, between buildings, campuses, um, education, uh, government. A lot of folks are moving around and they can now take their landline with them and see who is calling and what number they're calling. I'm not going to read all of this. Mark, you've covered a lot of it. Important to note, quality of service. It's not using that data connection. It's
Right.
not using an app. It's using that native interface. And so now you have uh, a universal endpoint, really. It's just another endpoint.
And that's really,
Mike, you cut off. We can't hear you, Mike.
can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. And that's really the point of what this slide is trying to tell you. It's just another endpoint. Mark alluded to it earlier. We're not adding any intelligence, any complexity on top. It's just utilizing the native mobile device as another endpoint for solving use cases. That's really the critical pieces. And it definitely doesn't use your data line. It's using the quality of service built into the cellular network, the voice network, for attaching that user into your communication application server.
Right, right. Not another number you get from Verizon and use it as a business number, not another mobile number, so it's all on one. It's that existing UC-based landline number.
And oh,
Um,
by the way, you can actually white label the network name on the device too. So it won't say anything about Tango, or it can be whatever mobile communication strategy you'd like it to be, your brand, always visible to your end users.
yeah. Mike, why don't you take over and show a little bit about how the magic is done behind the scenes?
Yep, let's move on to the next one, Mark. And I want to continue this endpoint motif.
One thing I wanted to say to our viewers was you can enter your questions in the Q&A panel, and we'll bring those up. May bring up some of them in the conversation, but at least we'll have some time to get to them at the end. So use your the Q&A just as things pop to mind, and we'll be sure we cover those. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. So on the right here, as a UC provider, you've got a communication application server that's got all kinds of features built into it, all kinds of services from call recording, analytics, whatever it may be, right? So those platforms you've built over time to provide the best quality of service, provide the best end user experience, and most importantly, service level to your end users. So to attach into those platforms and solve use cases, you've got the usual suspects. You've got hard phones, your desk phones there, you've got mobile clients, and you've got desktop clients. And these are kind of the usual suspects, if you will, for solving communication use cases for your customers. And those work great. There's certain use cases where those are going to shine and work great. But what we're doing is introducing another endpoint. Mark, if you'll go ahead and advance there. We're introducing another endpoint for you to solve use cases, and that's the native interface for voice and for texting, right? So for example, when it comes to compliance, you cannot solve regulatory mobile call recording with an app, right? So you need something that's policy driven, that's built into the network, that's assured to be activated, doesn't require end user involvement to initiate. It's built in, it'll be recorded. If it's on the platform, if it's on your application server specified to an end user that's normally triggered from his desk or his soft client, well, now it's going to be triggered on the native mobile application as well. And if you'll advance one more, we see this as the preferred endpoint of the future. As Mark said, everybody's got an iPhone or an Android, everybody's got a mobile phone, right? So why not leverage that endpoint for your business communication needs? All the services that you've built and layered onto your communication application server will naturally be extended to this new endpoint. I mentioned compliance. That's a difficult one to solve. On the other end of the spectrum, another use case is simplicity for workers on the move, the guys out there in the trucks providing some level of service. They don't have to fumble with an app in order to call the customer, let them know they're coming. They just want it to be something simple, easy to use. And oh, by the way, that integrates nicely with Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. It just works in their car when they're on the move. And that's what you can get with Tango Extend plugged into your platform. All right, let's take a look at the plumbing. How does this magic come together? And I want to start with an extremely simplified view of what your picture may look like today. You as a UC provider, you've got a communication application server, be it Port1, NetSapiens, whatever it may be. You've got it in the cloud. That's connected to your PSTN service where your calling plans and your numbers are available to your users. And typically today, you'll have users remote using a desk phone or a soft client connected back in over the internet via SIP into your communication platform. And you've probably got a pane of glass that you use to manage that platform as well. With Tango Extend, what we're doing is leveraging those same interfaces. And if you could go ahead and advance there, Mark, yep, we're leveraging the exact same interfaces as the remote desk phones do. You do not have to do anything different to integrate our service because we're connecting in just like a desk phone. In our network, we have application servers that will register into your communication platform on behalf of the mobile device. There's no intelligence on the mobile other than the eSIM to connect into our core. Our application servers do the magic of connecting into your platform, registering into your platform, making the mobile available as an endpoint. We've got global partners, global MNO partners around the world that provide us access. We have direct relationships with these MNOs so that you can have the best quality of best user experience, best quality of service, VoIP around the world. So your end users will wherever they are in the world, they'll have the same level of service. And more importantly, they'll be attached to their communication services provided by your application server. If call recording is set up to record his calls, no matter where he is in the world, those calls will be recorded. We have a full IMS core that essentially proxies your environment, your communication environment with the mobile side. And as kind of Mark alluded to, we're hiding the complexity of mobile communications from you. At the end of the day, the mobile is just another endpoint, and the platform sees it as just another endpoint. It doesn't know or care that it's a mobile. It's just another endpoint for you to provide to users and solve use cases. And obviously, you have that pane of glass. We have APIs that allow you to extend your pane of glass so that you have one place for managing both and provisioning your application, your communication application server, and the mobile side as well. You can choose to use our pane of glass if that's your choice, no problem. But most of our partners are leveraging our API for provisioning.
I did have a really great question that came in. I want to ask. So, just for perspective here, I know for the Broadworks community, BroadSoft built the product, and then Cisco bought this product. So BroadWorks in general, we're kind of accustomed to being able to run our UC network in IMS mode. So we can run classically. They have an application server, execution server. Most IMS providers to run the execution server model. We can install a server called SCF, the service control function, to integrate with that. Our BroadWorks servers can become um, application servers running inside of an IMS network. And so
Right.
the question that was asked was to deliver the level of integration you're talking about here, do we need to have that? Do we need to have the IMS base in order to support the mobile telephony?
And the answer is no, no. So we're just acting as another endpoint, another desk device. You don't have to enable that for desk phone. You don't have to enable it for us as well. Our integration is via SIP, just like a desk phone. We're mimicking what a desk phone does to connect into the platform. That way, there's nothing new you need to do. You don't have to stand up any new services or servers in order to leverage the service. It's a consistent experience across all the platforms. NetSapiens, Porta One, it's all the same, right? So we're connecting in the same way. There's no real delta other than how you create a device and associate it with a user on a given platform. That's really it. Other than that, it's just a provisioning exercise. You provision the user and our platform with SIP credentials, and bam, we start to do the registration automatically into the platform. That's really it. It's extremely simple to integrate, and it's extremely simple to provision.
Cool, great. Another question that came in is the on Metaswitch support. Basically, it was a vote of support. They'd like to have better integration or full integration with Metaswitch Alianza, endpoint pack, and a remote media gateway profile. Those would be some things that were asked for there. And so I think that was mostly a request for looking at it down the road. My experience would be there's a lot of application servers that Tango works with. Looking at the SIP protocol in detail, the SIP registration, it's really straightforward stuff. Mike, any more to mention on kind of the application server, what it's like to add on a new application server?
I don't think so. So the way it used to work is we would build profiles for BroadWorks, for Porta One, for NetSapiens, and whoever else. We've got a host of platforms that we support. What we're moving towards is what we call the voice API, that it really allows for any platform to connect in, and we have a way of tweaking on the fly any parameters, SIP configuration, allowing us to quickly adapt to any platform. Metaswitch is not a platform that we have a built-in profile today, but I don't see that as an issue. They all, everything's SIP based today, and it's really easy to configure SIP with our new voice API that's going to be coming in the next couple of months.
Great. And one point I know that we're going to make is that anyone who wants to test it, we're happy to get you set up with a trial with Tango to do this. I will say, the one thing you're going to have is a phone. So if you've got a smartphone, then you're probably eligible for a trial. So you could test it out.
And it needs to be carrier unlocked, right? So it
Right.
can't lock to a particular carrier. And that's nothing really new specific to Tango. That's with any MVNO service that you want to stick in another SIM, the phone has to be unlocked.
Mm-hmm. I've got a couple more questions, but we can ask those now, or you can go on. What would you prefer, Mike?
Let's go ahead and go on, because I think
Okay.
some of the questions might be addressed. We only really got one more slide, then we're into Q&A.
Great. Okay.
So we really want to talk about the end user experience really quickly. And you've seen this one before, the dial pad, right? So when you have two lines on the device, iOS and Android, Google Pixel and Samsung devices, they've done a good job of providing you a means of managing your identity, managing dual persona. And on the dial pad, it's as simple as just line selection, but it goes further. So for example, in your contacts, if you go to the next one, in your contacts, you can actually associate a line with a contact. You'll see there in the middle where it says preferred line. Johnny Tango here is a business contact. I always want to use my business identity, my business services when I'm talking to Johnny. So I set up the preferred line as business. So anytime I call Johnny, it's always going to be using my business line. I don't have to really think about it. It just works behind the scenes. And even further to that, same thing with messaging. If you compose a new message on an iPhone, or same thing with the Android devices, you're able to select the identity that you want to use. And oh, by the way, we provide you with options for controlling SMS. There's what we call the easy route, where Tango manages and routes SMS on your behalf. And if you need to see that SMS content, we can push it to you in a non-real-time fashion. Or there's an advanced mode where we have a messaging API where you are in charge of messaging and routing and connecting to the quote PSTN, and you connect it to the mobile via an API through us. But you control everything to do with SMS. And what our partners are doing are wrapping services around that. If it's some sort of compliance service, if it's an analytics service, whatever it may be, they're building, and it's a new revenue stream for them, these services around SMS. We're seeing more and more where compliance is a requirement. Obviously, voice is historically a thing that's really easy to do, and mobile call recording is even easier now with Extend. But SMS has been kind of outside of the purview and control of partners such as yourselves. We're giving you options for leveraging SMS, controlling SMS as well.
Right, compliance or quality management.
Right.
I have found that the messaging feature is a really powerful tool. We have crossed a threshold where it used to be that SMS was not widely used and it became used in the consumer world. And then I noticed, my clients, as consulting engineering clients, they're texting me. They're texting me at the number. Well, before I had Tango Extend, my only option for getting those texts was to set up kind of a business messaging service where I've got kind of a web interface or a separate app. And I use those for marketing purposes, for marketing communication, but they're not really intended for communication with an individual user. There's registration requirements, there's some complexities there. Most of the applications are not are targeted at business to consumer messaging. They're not really targeted at user to user messaging. Now, there are some other tools out there, but none of them are as convenient as just using the messaging built into my phone. So having, like it shows here on this rightmost screen, the ability to just have business messaging with a contact where I still have a separate personal or cell phone number. That's not really the number I want to share. It's not the identity I want to share, but I want to use my business number, which is the very same number that I call, that I receive my calls at and call to. And as a secret, I don't actually have my calls for my number come directly to ring my phone. So they actually go to a voice captcha to avoid spam calls. So when you call into me, it actually gives you a prompt. You have to answer that, and then it routes to it. Well, that works perfectly fine with Tango Extend. It's something that's done inside of my, my UC platform, which is BroadWorks. It's done inside there, so I'm able to add advanced services, and it still works perfectly fine. My Tango line and my other, my soft client that runs on my Mac and desk phones, they all register back to the same user. Tango happens to be the one I actually use for making and receiving calls, though.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah, I see a number of questions out there.
Yeah, we do have some other questions. Let me put to you. So we answered about, you talked about the IMS integration. So just to clarify, because I gave kind of a long lead up on this, you do not need all those servers. You do not need IMS mode. You don't have to, you don't have to speak the diameter interface at all. Like there's no diameter. So if you just think of that, if there's no diameter involved, then that'll tell you that you don't need any IMS integration necessarily to do that. But that's a great question from Guillermo. Thanks for that.
Another point, Mark, I'd like to make here, it shows the internet, right? So, and that's kind of the standard that most partners utilize. However, we do offer, if it's a requirement for you, we can do data center cross connects. If you'd like that private connection, assured bandwidth, that sort of thing, we also support doing data center cross connects for connectivity.
Yeah, that was actually that was another question I had that came in offline. So that's a good question. So basically something, the question was basically, what can I do if I don't want to depend on my internet links? And you just said a data center cross connect was the option.
Yep.
Right. Tom asks, what countries Tango Extend is supported in?
So we offer.
I've got a graphic I'll bring up while Mike speaks to that.
Okay. Yeah. So we have a service called Global Pass, and what that is 39 countries where you can use the service at a flat fee. So there's no bill shock. All mobile roaming, data usage, voice usage, SMS is all covered in these 39 countries. Beyond that, outside of those Global Pass countries, we do offer roaming. You can pretty much go anywhere, and we have what's called Day Pass. So if you're in a country that's not one of our Global Pass countries, you'll have a day pass added, $8, $10, whatever it may be per day, where you have a unlimited voice and texting and 1 gig of data for that day. And if you continue to use it for subsequent days, another day pass will be added. And you as the partner can control, well, what limit of day passes do you know, 10? Do I want to stop at 10 day pass? You can control that. Our whole goal is to eliminate bill shock, have roaming completely predictable, even when you're going outside of our global pass countries. So what Robert's showing here, this is our 39 countries, and this is actually a bit outdated because our home countries have increased to 17 now. We just added the Netherlands last week. So those are 17 home countries where you can actually provision a subscriber with a local number in that country. We've got direct MNO relationships with carriers in that country, providing the best quality of service. And then we have our additional home away countries where you can roam to at no additional fee, all covered under your bundle, but we do not offer, quote, home service there. You can't provision a subscriber there. That's really the difference. So the culmination of these 39 countries is what we call global pass, eliminating bill shock, and it should cover your customer base for the majority of the world.
Mhm.
And I've used this with a lot of success. One of the things you haven't mentioned, but it's important detail. It hasn't come in as a question yet either. Is that there actually is data that goes along with this, and so Tango is providing data. So, for example, I was at Mobile World Congress. It's in Spain. It's one of the home countries. Well, the question usually, if you're a U.S. user, you can either pay your basic mobile provider kind of a lot to get roaming service in most cases, especially on a business line like I have, business cell phone line. But in fact, when I was there, I used the Tango service for data while I was in Spain. And that just became my basic data service while I was there. It was included in the bundle that I was using, like Mike mentioned, and it worked perfectly fine. I continue to be able to make and receive calls at my US number. I could make and receive texts at my US number because the network was basically connecting back. And that's really very valuable to be able to reliably send text messages in another country. Here at ECG, we've used the Tango services in a lot of countries, testing them out just as we travel, as we attend meetings, and it's worked really well. We're able to continue to make and receive calls, but also we use their data services. So while we're talking about making voice calls and everything, the actual availability of a data plan that's associated with this eSIM is a pretty important aspect because it's very likely that as you're traveling, especially, actually having that data plan as part of it is important. Another kind of technical element is that at least in some scenarios, I know that when you're on a phone call with Tango, so I'm my ECG number, I'm receiving a call. Well, the phone's automatically going to use the data plan associated with the line that's actively on a call. And so, well, if you're like me, I'm on a call and I'm also looking at the map, or I've got something else. I'm pulling up data somewhere else. And so that data plan becomes essential to being able to continue to be productive on my mobile device.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I think the biggest use case there is navigation. When they use our service as a second line on the phone and they're on a conference call on the call, well, they still need to be able to do navigation. So that's why of course, we've got data as well.
Great. I got another question. You mentioned that this is eSIM based. How does the eSIM get on the mobile device and get activated? Robert, you might be in a good position if you've got that a slide on activation. I know you guys have some nice just web pages about that.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find something quickly.
I can talk to it while you're looking for it if you like.
Well, I might be able to.
Yeah.
Your webpage on this is pretty good, actually. Let me see if I can show this.
All right.
Oh, I got a good one here. Got a good
Go for
one.
it. Yeah, just go. You're already sharing. Go for it.
Yeah. So it doesn't show. Now it looks like Zoom wants to crash. So if I
Let me talk to it then. Let's let me talk to it. So essentially it's a QR code, right? So once you provision a subscriber with an eSIM on our platform, our platform will generate a QR code. And you can either consume that via an API and provide it to your end customer however you like, by email, whatever it may be. But that's really it. Is all by a QR code, and they just scan the QR code with their phone, and that kicks off the eSIM installation wizard on your device. With that said, we're not just eSIM based. That's really the popular trend these days, mainly because of ease of distribution and ease of installation for the end user. But we also support physical SIMs if that's a requirement, or for whatever reason the device doesn't support eSIM. We do offer physical SIMs as well.
Yeah, I think that the key technology, Jeff had this question about eSIM based. One of the key technologies is that the smartphone providers, in our case on the Android and iPhone platform, they have a way of scanning a QR code. So they've got this example here. I just went to their webpage. They've got a QR code. When you scan it with the camera app, it does just like Mike says, and it activates basically the provisioning process. So this has the credentials, the basic credentials in it to go receive the provisioning that's necessary to build out the QR code. One of the great things here is that this is really widely used. So a lot of the big providers are using this. T-Mobile, for example, actively sells second line service using the same system. So this isn't something that's like a new technology that you're going to wonder how reliable it is. This is really fully baked, reliable stuff, and it's built in there. And so this provisioning process is actually really lightweight on the user side. And then what a lot of us who come from the UC perspective is we're not super familiar with all the authentication and security that happens in the 4G, 5G world for provisioning a line and how it authenticates with the network and things like that. That stuff's done really strong, partially because cell phone companies don't want their services being stolen. So they put a very high priority on the security and authentication to connect a mobile device to their towers and their network. And so basically you get all the benefit of that technology too. So a lot of us from the UC world, we think a lot about how to do device provisioning in a secure way. And you kind of get that not for free, but it's built into the service. It's part of the offering. Um, so I'll stop the share here. I've got a couple of other questions that have come in as well. Um, the Another question that I wanted to ask that came in offline was, do I need a special SIP trunk between my UC platform and Tango? And maybe I'll pull that diagram back up here um, to highlight what we're talking about here. But the question is, you mentioned the SIP registration, and maybe I think the question has to do with that type of connectivity. Let me
Yep.
share here, and I'll put it back up. But yeah, the question is, do I need a SIP trunk between my system and the Tango network?
So no, as you see there, by default it uses the internet. So that's we just your connectivity between our platform and your environment is through the internet. Of course, that means on your side probably some firewall changes to allow our IP address to come through and be allowed to enter your environment. But it's just public internet. There's nothing physical you need to set up.
Okay. Well, so I think in the parlance, they would think of SIP trunk as being across the internet, but basically, it's a statically configured thing where you're doing it. I heard you mention SIP registers, and that's been what I've observed is a SIP register. So it's not let so like you said, you might need to open your SBC to allow the IP addresses of the Tango network, but you don't have to build an actual defined like static SIP trunk the way you might for a customer with a PBX.
Correct. Yeah, that was my meant about my
Mhm.
point about physical. There's no real work you have to go do for
Right.
connectivity. And on our side as well, we have to go into our firewall and allow your IP addresses or FQDNs to come into our environment. So it's that's really the extent of the integration, if you will.
So another question that came in offline, you mentioned the physical SIM. We talked about eSIM integration because it's a really fast, lightweight way you can activate a customer with sending them a QR code and an email.
Yep.
Um, but you also mentioned you support physical SIMs, and I think it's for UC providers, probably where this question is coming from. It's kind of wrapping your mind around the ability to offer a voice service over the cellular network that's connected back to my core platform, my UC platform. Um, if they were interested, the questions about POTS replacement, if they were interested in a POTS replacement type of functionality, where often one of the questions for POTS replacement, it's very common in the United States that the POTS replacement needs a wireless backup option. Um, could you play a role in that?
100%. I've got one right here that I'm putting through the paces. We've just finished approving one to our compatible list. So yes, that's an interesting use case that's been brought by our partners is leveraging POTS replacement, attaching the POTS replacement device into like your BroadWorks as another CDOF BroadWorks. So yeah, that's a really cool and interesting use case. You stick up one of our physical SIMs in this device and away you go. They can eliminate the expense of that PSTN line go mobile only or wireless only, but more importantly, connected into your platform.
Right. As a matter of fact, we have a partner that has a number of devices that are at multifamily gated communities, door entry devices. So a lot of different use cases. So love to chat with the community about what we can do. And like you had said, Mark, happy to have a trial through ECG. Go ahead and coordinate that through Mark.
Yeah, if you are interested in doing a trial, we'd love to show you how simple this is. The Tango platform, we haven't demoed the actual provisioning platform, but the platform for creating and managing services, creating the lines. Effectively in the portal, you configure this link from Tango Extend back. Of course, you can do it with their API, but the sort of the easy button is just to log in and create these to get your trial going. And that the Tango team helps with all that, sort of getting the ball rolling for you. And so what you have is you could take, your core team, maybe at your company, you guys have cell phones, and you could take your business lines that you're already using on maybe the, WebEx for Broadworks app or another over-the-top app, and bring that to your core team over your existing cell phones with by adding an eSIM, or if you've got an extra unlocked phone around and you want to get a pSIM, we can help you with that. We can get you a physical SIM to do that as well. eSIM is just a really fast option for doing it. One last question is that came in was about messaging. We talked about SMS, and I mentioned I've made use of that texting on my ECG number, and to keep that separate from the mobile, the underlying, well, the other mobile number. But do you support Apple iMessage? Could a user, was there a way to sort of make it so that my business line becomes an iMessage line? And are there any kind of gotchas around that?
Yeah, absolutely. We support the activation of iMessage with your DID. That's great. And if the use case permits it, fantastic. And when I say permits it, what I mean is if there's a compliance requirement, then you don't want iMessage being utilized because that's outside of the purview of Tango. That's riding over the data channel. It's not a real SMS. It's within their ecosystem. But long story short, yes, you can use iMessage with your business number. It works just fine. We just got to be careful when it comes to the use case, and is there a requirement to capture those texts and those messages?
Right. So if you had a case where you needed to get a copy of those messages for compliance purposes, like these are all the text messages sent or received by our business our employees on their lines, then if they're doing it over iMessage, that's going through an encrypted ecosystem. And it wouldn't be you wouldn't see that in your compliance logs if you had to keep those. Is that right?
That's right. 100%.
Okay, great. Well, we've used up our time. We had a lot of great questions. Thanks for joining in, everyone. Thanks especially to Robert Babis and Mike Bishop for joining in from Tango. We will be glad to follow up with anyone who's got questions or would like to work on doing a trial. Get this on your system at no cost, so you can see what it's like. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
Good day.